The silent scream, the discovery. Captain Elena Vasquez stood in the observation deck of the UES Tempest, watching the stars through reinforced titanium glass windows that could withstand atmospheric pressures lethal to most known species. Her dark eyes reflected the distant light of alien suns as she sipped her morning coffee, a bitter earth brew that would be toxic to 90% of galactic civilization. The silence of space surrounded her ship and its crew of 300 humans, each one a product of evolution's crewless laboratory. Earth had been part of the galactic community for only 8 years, but in that short time, humanity had earned a reputation that made even the most warlike species nervous. They called humans Deathworlders, not as an insult, but as a warning. While other species evolved on garden worlds with gentle gravity and predictable weather, humans had crawled out of a planetary hellscape that tried to kill them every single day. The communication array suddenly chimed with an incoming signal. Lieutenant Marcus Chen, the ship's communications officer, looked up from his station with confusion etched across his features. His fingers danced across holographic controls as he worked to clean up the transmission. "Captain, we're receiving a distress signal," Chen announced, his voice carrying the crisp efficiency that marked all human military personnel. "But it's strange. The signal is incredibly weak, almost like it's been traveling for months." Vasquez set down her coffee cup and moved to the bridge, her boots making soft sounds against the metal flooring. The bridge of the Tempest was a marvel of human engineering, designed to function under extreme conditions that would crush the command centers of other species. Every surface was reinforced, every system redundant, built by a species that understood failure meant death. "Put it through the translation matrix," Vasquez ordered, settling into her command chair. The chair itself was a work of art, designed to keep a human conscious and functional under G-forces that would liquefy most aliens. The main screen flickered to life, showing the being unlike anything in the standard galactic database. The creature appeared to be made of living crystal, its translucent body shifting through colors that had no names in human language. Its form was delicate, almost ethereal, like a sculpture carved from pure light. "This is Elder Thalos of the Kithara Collective." The being's voice came through the universal translator, carrying undertones of desperate hope. "We transmit this message to any who might receive it across the void. Our world dies. Our people fade. The Zephyrian Empire has come to our system with ships of war. They demand our surrender, our crystal cores, our very essence." The image flickered, static consuming parts of the transmission. When it cleared, the creature's light had dimmed noticeably. "We are a peaceful people. We have no weapons, no defenses save the beauty of our psalms and the warmth of our light. The Zephyrians care nothing for such things. They see only resources to harvest, crystals to mine from our living bodies. We have perhaps days before they begin the extraction process. If any beings of compassion exist in this galaxy, we beg for aid. The coordinates of our world are embedded in this transmission. We are the last of our kind." The message ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Vasquez stared at the blank screen, her mind already calculating distances and tactical considerations. The Kithara system was 3 days away at maximum burn, well within the Tempest's operational range. "Sir," spoke Lieutenant Commander James Park, the ship's tactical officer and Vasquez's second-in-command. "I've analyzed the transmission. Based on the signal degradation and interference patterns, this message has been broadcasting for approximately 4 months. If the timeline they mentioned is accurate, they're already dead," Vasquez finished grimly. "Or worse, if the Zephyrians are harvesting them as described." The silence stretched for several heartbeats before Chen spoke up. "Captain, I'm detecting something else in the transmission. Hidden data packets, encrypted but following standard Galactic Council protocols. Decode them." Chen's fingers flew across his console. After a moment, his face went pale. "Ma'am, these are official Galactic Council communications. Multiple species received this distress call. The Altarian Federation, the Centauri Alliance, even the Vegan Confederacy. All of them chose not to respond." Vasquez felt a familiar cold anger settling in her stomach. "Why?" According to the intercepted communications, the Galactic Council advised all member species to ignore the distress call. They classified it as an internal matter of the Zephyrian Empire. Apparently, the Kythera system falls within what the Zephyrians claim as their expansion territory. The decision. Dr. Sarah Kim, the ship's chief medical officer and xenobiology specialist, had arrived on the bridge during the conversation. Her expertise in alien physiology made her invaluable for first contact situations, but her expression now showed deep concern. "Captain," she said quietly, "I've been studying the transmission data. The Kythera aren't just being conquered. Based on their physiology and the Zephyrian method of crystal extraction they mentioned, this is essentially mass murder. The Zephyrians are literally mining their bodies while they're still alive." Vasquez stood slowly, her jaw set in the expression her crew had learned meant someone was about to have a very bad day. In the 8 years since humanity had joined the galactic community, they had learned many things about their alien neighbors. Most species were peaceful, having evolved on worlds that rewarded cooperation over competition. Most species had never known true predators, never experienced the evolutionary pressure that forged killers. Most species had never needed to become dangerous. "Chen, open a channel to Earth Command," Vasquez ordered. "Priority Alpha classification." Within minutes, Admiral Rebecca Santos appeared on the main screen. Santos was a veteran of humanity's expansion into space, a woman whose career had been built on making the hard decisions that kept humanity alive in a galaxy that didn't understand them. "Captain Vasquez," Santos began without preamble, "I'd assume this is about the Kythera distress signal. We've been monitoring the situation. Admiral, the Galactic Council has chosen to ignore a clear case of genocide. Multiple species have the capability to respond but refuse to act because of political considerations." Santos nodded grimly. "I'm aware. The Council contacted Earth directly, advising us not to interfere. They reminded us that humanity is still new to galactic politics and suggested we follow the example of more experienced species." Vasquez's eyes hardened. "And our response?" "The Security Council met in emergency session. The vote was unanimous." Santos leaned forward, her expression fierce. "The Tempest is ordered to proceed to the Kythera system with all possible speed. You are authorized to use any means necessary to protect civilian lives and stop the ongoing atrocities." Park whistled softly. "Admiral, the Zephyrian Empire has one of the largest fleets in this sector. Intelligence estimates suggest they have at least 40 warships in the Kythera system." "I'm aware of the odds, Lieutenant Commander," Santos replied. "I'm also aware that the Tempest carries 300 humans who grew up on a world that makes most alien planets look like vacation resorts. The Zephyrians have never fought Deathworlders before. They're about to learn why the rest of the galaxy walks carefully around us." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge crew to absorb the magnitude of their mission. One ship against an Imperial fleet. 300 humans against thousands of aliens. To most species, it would be suicide. To humans, it was Tuesday. First contact. 3 days later, the UES Tempest dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kythera system. The sight that greeted them was both beautiful and horrifying. The Kythera homeworld hung in space like a jewel, its surface covered in crystalline structures that caught and reflected the light of their star in brilliant patterns. But surrounding the planet was a fleet of dark, angular ships that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. 43 Zephyrian vessels confirmed, Park reported from his tactical station. Battle cruisers, destroyers, and what appears to be several mining ships already in orbit around the planet. "Life signs on the surface?" Vasquez asked. Dr. Kim studied her readings carefully. "Difficult to determine with their crystalline physiology, but I'm detecting approximately 2 million Kythera life signs. That's down from the estimated population of 12 million based on their cultural broadcasts from previous years." The implications hit the bridge crew like a physical blow. 10 million sentient beings, murdered for their body's mineral content. "Captain," Chen announced, "we're being hailed by the Zephyrian fleet. Priority transmission from their flagship." On screen. The alien that appeared was humanoid but wrong in every way that mattered. The Zephyrian commander had gray, mottled skin that seemed to shift and writhe as if something moved beneath it. Its eyes were solid black, reflecting no light, and when it spoke, its voice carried undertones that suggested predatory satisfaction. Unknown vessel, you have entered restricted space claimed by the Zephyrian Empire. Identify yourself and state your business or be destroyed. Vasquez stood, her posture radiating the calm confidence of a natural predator. This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the United Earth ship Tempest. We are responding to a distress call from the Kithara Collective. We demand the immediate cessation of hostile actions against the Kithara people. The Zephyrian commander's features twisted in what might have been amusement. Earth. Yes, we have heard of your species, the new arrivals who think themselves important. I am Fleet Commander Morvac of the Eternal Hunger. Your demand is noted and rejected. The Kithara exist to serve the Empire's needs. Leave now or share their fate. The Kithara are peaceful beings who have committed no crimes against your empire, Vasquez responded, her voice remaining level despite the rage building behind her eyes. What you're doing here is genocide. Morvac's laughter was like the sound of breaking glass. Genocide implies the destruction of equals. The Kithara are resources, nothing more. Their crystal mattresses will power our ships and enhance our weapons. Every moment you delay costs Zephyrian lives that could be saved by Kithara resources. Then let me make our position clear, Vasquez said, her voice dropping to the tone that made her crew unconsciously check their weapons. You will cease your attacks on the Kithara. You will withdraw your fleet from this system. You will provide medical aid to any injured Kithara. If you refuse, we will make you. The silence that followed was broken by Morvac's renewed laughter. One ship against the might of the Empire. You humans truly are as insane as the reports suggest. Very well. I will demonstrate the futility of your position. Prepare to be educated in the realities of galactic power. The transmission ended. Vasquez turned to her crew, seeing the same cold determination in their eyes that she felt in her heart. All hands, this is the captain, she announced over the ship's communication system. We have been threatened by an empire that believes might makes right. They have committed genocide against peaceful beings and now seek to intimidate us into abandoning our principles. They have made a fundamental error in judgment. They believe that because we are outnumbered, we are outmatched. They are about to learn the difference between quantity and quality. All stations, battle ready. Show them what Deathworlders can do. The first strike. The Zephyrian attack came within minutes, just as expected. 3 destroyers broke from the main fleet, their weapons charging with energy that would vaporize most ships in the galaxy. But the Tempest wasn't most ships. Built in Earth's orbital shipyards, it was designed by a species that understood that space was trying to kill them just as surely as their homeworld had. Incoming missiles, Park announced calmly. 12 plasma torpedoes. Vector analysis suggests they're targeting our engine section. Evasive maneuvers, Vasquez ordered. Pattern Delta 7. What happened next would have been impossible for most alien crews. The Tempest suddenly accelerated perpendicular to its previous course at 18 gravities, a maneuver that would have killed any Zephyrian instantly. The human crew, secured in their acceleration couches and protected by internal gravity compensators, rode out the crushing force with the unconscious ease of a species that had evolved under conditions that would crush most aliens. The plasma torpedoes passed harmlessly through the space where the Tempest had been moments before. Before the Zephyrians could adjust their targeting, the human ship was already firing back. Humanity had learned much about galactic warfare in their 8 years among the stars. Most species fought at extreme range, exchanging fire across thousands of kilometers in careful, predictable patterns. Most species valued preservation of their ships and crew above tactical advantage. Most species hadn't evolved from persistence hunters who could track prey across continents. The Tempest's weapons were different from anything the Zephyrians had encountered. Instead of the flashy energy beams favored by most species, humans had developed kinetic weapons that accelerated tungsten rods to a significant percentage of light speed. To alien sensors, the projectiles were nearly invisible until they struck their targets. The first Zephyrian destroyer died before its crew understood what had happened. The tungsten rod punched through its hull like tissue paper, the kinetic energy release tearing the ship apart from the inside. The second destroyer managed to get its shields up, but the human weapons were designed to defeat energy barriers. The kinetic projectiles passed through the shields as if they didn't exist. The third destroyer turned to flee, its captain finally understanding that he was facing something outside his experience. It never made it back to the main fleet. The Tempest's pursuit was relentless, its weapons precise. In less than 10 minutes, 3 Zephyrian warships had been reduced to expanding clouds of debris. On the flagship of the Zephyrian fleet, Fleet Commander Morvac stared at the tactical display in disbelief. 3 destroyers destroyed by a single enemy vessel in less time than it typically took to achieve weapons lock. What are their weapons? He demanded of his tactical officer. Unknown, Fleet Commander. Our sensors detected no energy discharge consistent with known weapon types. The enemy ships fired. Our vessels were destroyed. There was no intermediate energy signature. Morvac's black eyes narrowed. Impossible. All weapons produce energy signatures. What about their defensive capabilities? Also unknown. They evaded our initial attack with acceleration levels that should have killed their crew. According to our intelligence on human physiology, no biological entity should be able to survive such forces. Then our intelligence is wrong, Morvac snarled, signaled the fleet. All ships are to converge on the human vessel. I want overwhelming firepower brought to bear. No more single-ship engagements. But as 20 Zephyrian warships moved to surround the Tempest, Captain Vasquez was already implementing the next phase of her strategy. The first skirmish had been reconnaissance, a chance to evaluate enemy capabilities and weaknesses. Now it was time to show the Zephyrians what happened when they threatened something humans were protecting. All stations, she announced to her crew, prepare for close engagement. It's time to teach these predators that there's always a bigger predator in the food chain. The real battle was about to begin, and the Zephyrians were about to discover that evolution had created something far more dangerous than they could possibly imagine. They were about to face humans in the environment where humanity excelled, a fight where everything was on the line, where failure meant the death of innocence, and where the only acceptable outcome was total victory. The Deathworlders had come to call, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Hunter's Gambit. The pack assembles. Captain Elena Vasquez watched the tactical display as 20 Zephyrian warships converged on the Tempest position. Each enemy vessel was larger than her ship, carrying more weapons and thicker armor. By every conventional measure, the human ship was about to be obliterated, but Elena had not survived 15 years in Earth's military by thinking conventionally. Captain, Lieutenant Commander Park announced from his tactical station, long-range sensors are detecting additional ships entering the system. Zephyrian reinforcements, approximately 15 vessels including what appears to be their sector command ship. Dr. Kim looked up from her xenobiology station, concern etched across her features. That brings their total force to nearly 60 ships. Even with our technological advantages, those odds are exactly what we expected, Vasquez finished calmly. She had studied every piece of intelligence Earth possessed on Zephyrian military doctrine. They were a hammer and anvil species, believing that overwhelming force could solve any problem. They had never encountered an opponent who could turn their own strength against them. Chen, any word from the Kythera surface? The communications officer's fingers danced across his holographic interface. I'm detecting weak transmissions from the crystalline cities, Captain. The surviving Kythera appear to be hiding in deep underground chambers. Their message is desperate. They're asking if we're really here to help them. Elena's jaw tightened. In the 3 days it had taken the Tempest to reach this system, 10 million sentient beings had been murdered for their mineral content. Each Kythera was a unique individual with their own thoughts, dreams, and fears, reduced to raw materials for Zephyrian industry. Tell them we're here, she said quietly. Tell them humans keep their promises. The first wave of Zephyrian ships opened fire simultaneously, turning the space around the Tempest into a deadly light show of energy beams and plasma torpedoes. Most species would have been overwhelmed by the sheer volume of incoming fire, but humans had learned to fight in 3 dimensions while their ancestors were still learning to use stone tools. Evasive pattern foxtrot, Vasquez ordered. Full defensive maneuvering. The Tempest seemed to dance between the enemy fire, its movements fluid and unpredictable. Where other ships might have fled in a straight line or followed standard evasion protocols, the human vessel moved like a living thing, constantly changing direction and speed in ways that made targeting calculations impossible. The secret was in the crew. Every human aboard the Tempest had been selected not just for their technical skills, but for their ability to function under extreme stress. They were descendants of a species that had survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and natural disasters that would have wiped out most galactic civilizations. When the ship pulled 22 gravities in a spiral incline that would have liquefied most alien crews, the humans simply adjusted their breathing and continued their work. Target acquisition, Park announced, his voice steady despite the crushing forces acting on his body. I have firing solutions on their lead elements. Fire at will, Vasquez commanded. The Tempest's kinetic weapon spoke with deadly precision. Unlike the flashy energy weapons favored by most species, human weapons were nearly invisible until they struck their targets. Tungsten rods accelerated to relativistic speeds punched through Zephyrian shields and armor as if they were made of paper. 3 more enemy ships died in the opening exchange, their hulls torn apart by weapons they never saw coming. But this time, the Zephyrians were ready for human tactics. The remaining ships spread out, creating overlapping fields of fire that would be difficult to evade. Fleet Commander Morveck studied the tactical display from his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. His black eyes reflected the red lights of his command bridge as he processed what he was seeing. The human ship moved unlike anything in his experience, but it was still just one vessel against his fleet. Pattern analysis complete, his tactical officer reported. The human vessel's evasion maneuvers follow no recognizable doctrine. Their movements appear random, but their weapon accuracy suggests sophisticated targeting systems. Morveck's features twisted in what passed for thought among his species. No movements are truly random. There must be a pattern. Continue analysis and prepare the gravity mines. If we cannot predict where they will go, we will make it impossible for them to go anywhere. The psychology of war. Dr. Sarah Kim had been monitoring Zephyrian communications since the battle began. Her expertise in xenobiology extended to xenopsychology. What she was hearing in the enemy transmissions worried her. "Captain," she called out during a brief lull in the fighting, "I think we have a problem. The Zephyrians are adapting faster than expected. Their communications suggest they're beginning to understand our tactical advantages." Vasquez glanced at the doctor while keeping most of her attention on the tactical display. "Explain." "They're a predator species, but not like us. They evolved as pack hunters on a low-gravity world with abundant prey. They're used to overwhelming weaker opponents through coordination and numbers. But they're also intelligent enough to learn from their mistakes." Lieutenant Chen suddenly looked up from his station, his face pale. "Captain, I'm intercepting new transmissions from the Zephyrian fleet. They're deploying gravity mines throughout the system. If we get caught in one of those fields..." The implication was clear. Gravity mines created localized distortions in spacetime that could trap or destroy any vessel that came too close. They were indiscriminate weapons, as dangerous to the Zephyrians as to their enemies, which meant Morveck was willing to risk his own ships to stop the Tempest. "Time to change tactics," Vasquez announced. She opened a ship-wide communication channel. "All hands, this is the captain. The enemy is adapting to our conventional approach. It's time to remind them why humans are the apex predators of our homeworld. Prepare for the Wolfpack protocol." Throughout the ship, the crew began implementing procedures that had been developed during humanity's early expansion into space. Earth's military doctrine was based on lessons learned from millennia of warfare, refined by a species that had fought for survival every day of their evolutionary history. The Wolfpack protocol was humanity's answer to numerical superiority. Instead of fighting as a single large force, human tactics emphasized coordination between smaller units that could operate independently while supporting each other. But the Tempest was alone, with no other ships to coordinate with. That was about to change. "Chen, transmit the following message on all frequencies," Vasquez ordered. "This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the UES Tempest to any Earth vessels in range. We are engaging a superior enemy force in the Kythera system. Any assistance would be appreciated." The communications officer looked confused. "Captain, there are no other Earth ships in this sector. The nearest human vessel is at least 6 days away at maximum burn." Vasquez smiled, the expression cold and predatory. The Zephyrians don't know that. The Ghost Fleet. What happened next would become legend among both human and alien military forces for generations to come. Captain Vasquez had realized that the Zephyrians were monitoring human communications, trying to understand their tactics and coordination. She decided to give them something to monitor. Chen, begin transmitting tactical coordination signals on standard Earth military frequencies. Make it look like we're coordinating with a fleet of ships approaching from multiple vectors. The communications officer's eyes widened with understanding, creating phantom fleet communications. Aye, Captain. Dr. Kim smiled as she began to understand the psychological warfare implications. You're making them think we have reinforcements coming. More than that, Vasquez replied. I'm making them think we're confident enough to call for help, which means we believe we can hold out until that help arrives. Predator species respect confidence. It makes them cautious. Over the next hour, the crew of the Tempest created an elaborate fiction. Chen transmitted status reports to non-existent ships, Park called out targeting data for imaginary wingmen, and Dr. Kim even added fake medical reports about casualties from other vessels. To anyone monitoring their communications, it would appear that a human fleet was operating in the system. The effect on the Zephyrian forces was immediate and profound. Fleet Commander Morvek found himself second-guessing every tactical decision as his crews reported intercepted human communications, suggesting the presence of multiple Earth vessels. Where are they? Morvak demanded of his sensor operators. If there are other human ships in this system, why can't we detect them? His senior tactical officer consulted his displays nervously. Unknown, Fleet Commander. It's possible they possess stealth technology beyond our capability to detect. The truth was that human technology wasn't significantly more advanced than Zephyrian systems. But the Zephyrians didn't know that. They only knew that a single human ship had destroyed 6 of their vessels while somehow coordinating with invisible reinforcements. Morvak's decision-making became increasingly erratic as the battle continued. Instead of pressing his numerical advantage, he began holding ships in reserve to guard against attacks from these phantom human vessels. His formation became defensive, allowing the Tempest to control the tempo of the engagement. The art of the impossible. As the battle entered its third hour, the Tempest had destroyed 12 Zephyrian vessels while suffering only minor damage to its hull plating. But Elena knew that their luck couldn't hold forever. The enemy was learning, adapting, and she was running low on ammunition for her kinetic weapons. Captain, Park announced, I'm reading massive energy buildup from the Zephyrian flagship. Whatever they're powering up, it's drawing energy from their entire fleet. Dr. Kim's xenobiology sensors confirmed the reading. It's some kind of directed energy weapon. The power levels are off the charts. If they target us with that, they'll vaporize us, Vasquez finished grimly. She studied the tactical display, looking for options that didn't exist. The Zephyrian fleet had finally managed to box her in, with gravity mines blocking most escape routes and overlapping fields of fire covering the rest. Most captains would have considered surrender at this point. Most species would have looked for a way to negotiate, to find some middle ground that would save at least some lives. Humans didn't negotiate when innocent lives were at stake. All hands, prepare for ramming speed, Vasquez announced calmly. The bridge crew turned to stare at their captain in shock. Dr. Kim was the first to find her voice. Captain, you can't be serious. That's suicide. No, Vasquez replied, her voice carrying the absolute certainty of someone who had already made their choice. That's evolution. Every predator species eventually encounters a situation where the only option is to attack something bigger and stronger. The successful predators are the ones willing to take that risk. She opened the channel to the Zephyrian flagship. Fleet Commander Morvak, this is Captain Vasquez. I'm offering you one final chance to withdraw your forces and end your attack on the Kithara people. Morvak's image appeared on the main screen, his alien features twisted with anticipation. Captain Vasquez, you are surrounded and outgunned. Your phantom fleet has failed to materialize. Surrender now, and I will make your death quick. Counter-offer, Vasquez said pleasantly. You have 10 seconds to begin withdrawing your forces before I demonstrate why humans are called Deathworlders. Morvak's laughter was like breaking glass. 10 seconds? What can you possibly do in 10 seconds? Alina smiled, and for the first time, Morvek felt something he had never experienced before when facing prey. Fear. Chen, she ordered quietly, transmit the real signal now. The communications officer pressed a single button on his console. Across the Kythera system, 6 gravity mines that had been deployed by the Zephyrians suddenly changed their configuration. Instead of creating gravity wells to trap ships, they began projecting gravity waves in carefully calculated patterns. The Zephyrians had been so focused on the Tempest that they had failed to notice the small human maintenance pods that had been deployed during the early stages of the battle. Those pods, crewed by humans in powered armor, had been working for hours to reprogram the gravity mines. Now, instead of random defensive positions, the mines created a gravity slingshot that accelerated the Tempest to nearly 30% of light speed directly toward the Zephyrian flagship. At such velocities, the Tempest itself became a kinetic weapon of unimaginable power. Morvac had exactly 2.3 seconds to contemplate the fact that he had been outmaneuvered by the species he had dismissed as primitive before his flagship, and everything within a 1,000-kilometer radius was converted to plasma. The price of victory, the destruction of their flagship, and the death of Fleet Commander Morvac broke the Zephyrian formation completely. The surviving ships, already demoralized by hours of fighting an enemy they couldn't understand, began fleeing the system in complete disorder. But the Tempest paid a price for its victory. The gravity wave that had accelerated it to ramming speed had also subjected the ship and crew to forces that pushed even human endurance to its limits. 3 crew members died from the extreme acceleration, and another dozen were seriously injured. Captain Elena Vasquez pulled herself back into her command chair, blood running from her nose where the G-forces had ruptured blood vessels. Around her, the bridge crew slowly recovered from an experience that would have killed most alien crews instantly. Damage report, she ordered, her voice hoarse but steady. Park consulted his tactical displays with shaking hands. Hull integrity at 60%. Main engines offline. Gravity generators failing on decks 7 through 12. But we're alive, Captain. Enemy status. 38 Zephyrian vessels destroyed or disabled. 15 ships have fled the system. The remaining forces are, Park paused, checking his readings again. They're requesting permission to surrender, Captain. Vasquez nodded slowly. Accept their surrender. Have Dr. Kim coordinate medical assistance for any survivors. And Chen. Yes, Captain. Send a message to the Kythera. Tell them the sky is clear. As the surviving crew of the Tempest began the process of securing their victory and helping their former enemies, Alina looked out at the stars and thought about the cost of doing what was right. Humanity had paid a price to save the Kythera, but it was a price they had been willing to pay. The galaxy was about to learn that when humans made a promise to protect the innocent, they kept that promise regardless of the odds. The age of human expansion into space had begun not with conquest or trade, but with a simple declaration that some things were worth fighting for, no matter the cost. The Predators had answered the call, and the galaxy would never be the same. The calm before the storm. 3 hours after the destruction of Fleet Commander Morvac's flagship, the UES Tempest hung dead in space above the Kythera homeworld. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows across the damaged bridge as Captain Elena Vasquez coordinated rescue operations for both human and Zephyrian survivors. Dr. Sarah Kim worked tirelessly in the medical bay, treating crew members who had survived G-forces that should have been fatal. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency as she stabilized Lieutenant Morrison, whose spine had been compressed during the final ramming maneuver. How is he? Vasquez asked, entering the medical bay between emergency repairs. He'll live, Dr. Kim replied without looking up from her patient, but he'll never walk again without cybernetic assistance. The same for Chief Petty Officer Rodriguez and Ensign Chen. They'll need full spinal reconstruction when we get back to Earth. The captain nodded grimly. The price of victory was always paid in blood, and Elena never forgot the names of those who paid it. Each casualty was a reminder that heroism had consequences, that saving lives sometimes meant destroying others. Captain, Lieutenant Commander Park's voice came through the ship's communication system. You need to see this. We're detecting massive energy signatures approaching the edge of the system. Elena made her way back to the bridge, where the main tactical display showed her worst fears realized. A new fleet was entering the Kythera system, but this one dwarfed anything they had faced before. 123 Zephyrian warships, including several massive dreadnoughts that could have served as mobile space stations. Analysis, Mr. Park. The tactical officer's face was pale as he consulted his readings. It's the Zephyrian Second Armada, Captain. Our intelligence files indicate this is their primary strategic reserve, commanded by Grand Admiral Vortak himself. They're not just here for the Kythera anymore. This is about us. Communications Officer Chen looked up from his station, his expression grim. I'm intercepting their transmissions, Captain. They're calling us the human threat and discussing the need to eliminate the Deathworlder infection before it spreads. Elena studied the tactical display, her mind calculating odds that were mathematically impossible. The Tempest was damaged, running low on ammunition, and facing a force that outnumbered them more than 100 to 1. By every rational measure, they should surrender or attempt to flee. But surrender would mean abandoning the Kythera to their fate, and Elena had made a promise to the crystalline beings hiding in their underground shelters. Humans kept their promises. Dr. Kim, she called out, what's the status of the Kythera survivors? The medical officer consulted her xenobiology readings. Approximately 1.8 million survivors planet-side, all in deep underground chambers. The Zephyrian mining operations were more extensive than we realized. They've been systematically harvesting the Kythera for months, processing their crystal matrices into ship components and weapons. Can they be evacuated? Not with our current resources. We need a full transport fleet and at least a week to safely relocate that many beings. The Kythera are fragile by human standards. Rapid acceleration or pressure changes could kill them. Elena nodded, her decision already made. Then we stay and fight. The strategy of desperation. Park stared at his captain as if she had announced her intention to fight a supernova with her bare hands. Captain, with respect, that fleet could destroy every human ship in space and still have reserves left over. We need to call for reinforcements. The nearest Earth fleet is 6 days away, Elena replied calmly. The Kythera don't have 6 days. They don't have 6 hours. She moved to the main tactical display, studying the approaching Zephyrian force. But we have something they don't expect. What's that, Captain? Dr. Kim asked. Imagination. Elena began highlighting sections of the tactical display. The Zephyrians think like conquerors. They see problems and apply overwhelming force until the problems go away. They've never had to think creatively because they've never needed to. Chen looked up from his communication station. Captain, I'm receiving a transmission from the lead Zephyrian vessel. It's directed specifically at us. On screen, the alien that appeared was even more imposing than Fleet Commander Morvac had been. Grand Admiral Vortak was larger, older, and radiated the kind of confidence that came from decades of unchallenged victory. His black eyes seemed to absorb light as he studied the humans on the Tempest Bridge. I am Grand Admiral Vortak of the Second Armada, the Zephyrian announced, his voice carrying undertones of absolute authority. You are the humans who destroyed Fleet Commander Morvac and his ships. I am Captain Elena Vasquez, she replied formally. And yes, we destroyed those ships after they refused to cease their attacks on the Kythera people. Vortak's features shifted in what might have been amusement. The Kythera are resources, Captain. Your interference in their harvesting has cost the Empire valuable time and materials. You will surrender your vessel immediately, and your crew will be processed for interrogation. Counter-proposal, Elena said pleasantly. You withdraw your forces from this system and leave the Kythera in peace. In return, I won't have to demonstrate why humans are considered the apex predators of our galaxy. The Grand Admiral's laughter was like grinding metal. Apex predators, you are one damaged ship against the might of the Second Armada. Your bravado is admirable but ultimately meaningless. Elena smiled, and something in that expression made Vortak unconsciously lean back from his communication screen. Grand Admiral, you're about to learn the difference between a predator and an apex predator. A predator hunts weaker prey. An apex predator hunts other predators. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in tense silence. Elena turned to her crew. seeing the same mix of fear and determination in their eyes that she felt in her heart. "All hands, this is the captain," she announced over the ship's communication system. "We face impossible odds against an enemy that sees us as inferior. They believe that because they outnumber us, they have already won. They're about to learn that evolution doesn't care about fair fights. Prepare for the Terran stratagem." The art of asymmetric warfare. The Terran stratagem was humanity's most desperate tactical doctrine, developed for situations where conventional warfare had become impossible. It was based on a simple premise. When you couldn't win through superior force, you won by changing the rules of engagement entirely. "Chen," Alina ordered, "begin broadcasting on all frequencies. I want every ship in this system to hear what I'm about to say." The communications officer nodded, his fingers dancing across his controls. "All frequencies open, Captain. You're transmitting to the entire system." Alina stood, her posture radiating the calm confidence of someone who had already made peace with their fate. "This is Captain Alina Vasquez of the United Earth ship Tempest. To the Zephyrian Second Armada currently approaching the Kythera homeworld. You have entered a star system under the protection of humanity. The beings on the planet below are peaceful crystalline entities who have committed no crimes against your empire. Your presence here constitutes an act of genocide." She paused, allowing her words to be transmitted across the vast distances between ships. "I hereby invoke Article 7 of the Terra Convention, the right of any human military unit to use any means necessary to protect civilian populations from acts of genocide. To any Earth vessels monitoring this transmission, you are witness to the implementation of the Terran stratagem in defense of the Kythera people." Park looked confused. "Captain, Article 7 doesn't authorize what I think you're planning." "Article 7 doesn't exist," Alina replied quietly. "But the Zephyrians don't know that." The genius of the Terran stratagem wasn't in its military applications, but in its psychological ones. By creating the impression that humanity had legal and moral authority to use extreme measures, Alina was planting seeds of doubt in the minds of her enemies. Species that had never faced humans in combat didn't know what they were capable of. The physics of destruction. Dr. Kim had been monitoring the system's stellar cartography during the tactical planning, her scientific background making her invaluable for the complex calculations required. "Captain, I've completed the analysis you requested. The asteroid field in the outer system contains approximately 40,000 objects large enough to cause significant damage if properly directed. Time to target if we begin maneuvering now? 18 hours to reach optimal position, assuming we can maintain engine power." Alina nodded. The plan was insane by any rational measure, but it was the only option that offered even a theoretical chance of success. The Tempest would use the system's asteroid field as an improvised weapon, creating a kinetic bombardment that would turn space itself into a weapon. "Mr. Park, what's the status of our gravity manipulation systems?" The tactical officer consulted his displays. "Still functional, but we've used most of our graviton charges. We might have enough power for one major manipulation, but after that, it won't matter," Alina finished. "Either this works or we're all dead anyway." The next several hours were spent in careful preparation. The Tempest limped toward the asteroid field while its crew worked frantically to reconfigure their gravity manipulation systems. Instead of using the technology for defensive purposes, they were turning it into the largest weapon ever deployed by humanity. Grand Admiral Vorthak watched the human ship's movements with growing confusion. "What are they doing?" he demanded of his tactical staff. "Why are they moving away from the planet they claim to be protecting?" His senior tactical officer studied the sensor readings with increasing concern. "Unknown, Grand Admiral. They appear to be heading toward the asteroid field in the outer system. Our analysis suggests no strategic value in that direction." "Then they're fleeing," Vorthak decided. "Maintain pursuit. I want that ship captured intact. The humans will provide valuable intelligence on Deathworlder capabilities." But as the Zephyrian Second Armada followed the Tempest toward the asteroid field, they failed to notice the subtle gravitational anomalies beginning to form throughout the system. The human ship wasn't fleeing. It was leading them into a trap that would turn the laws of physics into weapons of mass destruction. The moment of truth. 16 hours later, the UES Tempest hung motionless in the center of the asteroid field, its hull scarred and atmosphere leaking from a dozen hull breaches. The Zephyrian Second Armada had surrounded them completely, 123 warships forming a perfect sphere around the damaged human vessel. "This is your final opportunity," Grand Admiral Vorthak transmitted. "Surrender now, and your deaths will be swift." Captain Elena Vasquez stood on her damaged bridge, surrounded by her crew. 3 more humans had died during the flight to the asteroid field, their bodies now resting in the ship's morgue beside their fallen comrades. But the survivors remained at their posts, ready to see their mission through to whatever end awaited them. "Dr. Kim," Elena asked quietly, "status of the Kythera population?" "Still secure in their underground shelters," the medical officer replied. "They're asking if we're really going to save them." Elena nodded. "Tell them yes." She opened a channel to the Zephyrian fleet. "Grand Admiral Vorthak, you have pursued us to this location because you believe you have us trapped. You are correct. We cannot escape your superior numbers or firepower. But you have made a fundamental error in your understanding of human psychology." Vorthak's image appeared on the main screen, his alien features twisted with anticipation. "And what error is that, Captain?" "You assume that because we cannot win, we will not fight." Elena's voice carried the absolute certainty of someone who had already made their choice. "You forget that humans evolved on a world that tried to kill us every day. We learned long ago that sometimes the only way to survive is to make sure your enemies don't survive either." She turned to her tactical officer. "Mr. Park, initiate the Cascade Protocol." What happened next violated every principle of civilized warfare that the galaxy had developed over thousands of years. The Tempest-modified gravity generators created a cascading gravitational wave that swept through the asteroid field, accelerating 40,000 chunks of rock and metal to relativistic speeds. The Zephyrian fleet found itself in the center of a kinetic storm that turned space itself into a weapon. Asteroids moving at significant fractions of light speed struck their ships with the force of nuclear weapons, tearing through shields and armor as if they were made of paper. 23 Zephyrian vessels died in the first wave. 47 more were crippled or destroyed in the second. By the time Grand Admiral Vorthak realized what was happening, more than half of this fleet had been reduced to expanding clouds of debris. "Retreat!" Vorthak screamed to the surviving ships. "All vessels, emergency withdrawal." But it was too late. The cascade had taken on a life of its own, gravitational waves reflecting off massive asteroids and creating secondary effects that made escape impossible. The Second Armada, the pride of the Zephyrian Empire, was being systematically destroyed by forces beyond their control. The price of victory. The Tempest didn't escape the devastation it had created. The gravity waves that destroyed the Zephyrian fleet also tore apart the human ship, crushing hull sections and rupturing power conduits throughout the vessel. Emergency bulkheads sealed automatically as atmosphere vented into space, but the ship was dying. Captain Elena Vasquez pulled herself from the wreckage of her command chair, blood running from a gash on her forehead. Around her, the bridge crew worked frantically to maintain life support and communications. "Damage report," she called out. Park's voice came from somewhere in the smoke-filled bridge. "Hull integrity at 12% and falling. Main power offline. Emergency power failing on all decks. We have maybe 20 minutes before complete structural failure." Elena nodded, accepting the inevitable. "Dr. Kim, any word from the surface?" The medical officer's voice was weak but triumphant. "The Kythera are safe, Captain. The surviving Zephyrian ships are fleeing the system." "We did it." Chen, Elena ordered, "Send a final transmission to Earth Command. Tell them the Kythera system is secure. Tell them," she paused, thinking of the crew members who would never see home again. "Tell them humans keep their promises." As the Tempest broke apart around them, its crew made peace with their fate. They had faced impossible odds and emerged victorious, not through superior firepower or numbers, but through the uniquely human combination of ingenuity, determination, and absolute refusal to abandon those who needed protection. The debris field that had once been the Zephyrian Second Armada drifted silently through space, a monument to the price of underestimating humanity. And in the crystalline cities far below, 2 million Kythera survivors began to sing their psalms of gratitude to the stars, their voices carrying across the cosmos in harmonies that spoke of hope, sacrifice, and the power of those who choose to stand against the darkness. Epilogue. The legend spreads. 6 days later, the Earth fleet arrived in the Kythera system to find the wreckage of the most devastating space battle in galactic history. Of the UDS Tempest, only fragments remained, drifting alongside the debris of more than 100 Zephyrian warships. But in the deep underground chambers of the Kythera homeworld, the survivors told their story to anyone who would listen. They spoke of the humans who had come from across the galaxy to answer their plea for help, who had faced impossible odds without hesitation, and who had paid the ultimate price to ensure their freedom. The tale spread throughout the galactic community like wildfire. Species that had dismissed humanity as primitive newcomers suddenly viewed them with a mixture of respect and fear. The Zephyrian Empire, its fleet decimated and its expansion ambitions crushed, retreated to their core systems and never again attempted to conquer peaceful worlds. And in the halls of the Galactic Council, a new understanding emerged. There was a species among them that would not tolerate genocide, would not accept the strong preying upon the weak, and would pay any price to protect the innocent. They were called Deathworlders, and they had just announced their presence to the galaxy in terms that no one could misunderstand. Humanity had answered the call, and the stars themselves would remember.